John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. John Anik and Kenny Florian.
I love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. They're a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, John Anik and Kenny Florian.
Oh, is my guy Ken Flo ready to sound off on UFC 302? Guy was going fucking sick in the pre-show meeting. Great to have everybody with us. Live edition of the Anik and Florian podcast on a Monday. It is Monday, June 3rd, 2024, 12:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's great to see you. We got a ton to get into. We're going to do at least a power hour here on UFC 302, but we were delaying this show until about 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time today because we were going to wait and ingest the press conference in Dublin, Ireland, between Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler, Ken Flo. And as you might have heard, that press conference, at least for the time being, has been postponed.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. What is going on? Is there an injury? Are we moving the fight back? Is this just the conferences? Did Conor want a little break? Is Chandler in the air right now heading to Dublin? What's going on, John?
This certainly opens things up to speculation and narratives like you just laid out for everybody. So thank you, Ken Flo, for that. So I can tell you, like my ESPN producer, Charlie Moynihan, left Newark on Friday so as to get there to cover this thing. It was going to be an absolute fucking scene. Chandler never took off. I know our coordinating producer, Zach Candido, was scheduled to go. I don't know if he left. But I know a lot of people were probably massively inconvenienced. I don't know the ramifications as to why this was being canceled. I understand why people would speculate, though, because you don't postpone this thing, right? Because of all those factors, unless you really need to, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's very, very interesting, man. Very interesting.
All right. Well, I would imagine if they do reschedule it, I think John Kavanaugh was frustrated more tickets weren't available. So if they do reschedule this thing, they could sell out probably. I mean, can you imagine how many tickets they could actually sell for this type of press conference? Like, I'd pay to go.
Conor moves the needle still, man. There's no question about that.
All right. Today, though, it is about Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier. And what a weekend. I mean, you can say what you want about UFC 302 in totality, but the main event, it had something for everyone, did it not, Ken Flo? Headlines brought to you by Cuervo. Now's a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. Your UFC 302 main event, undisputed lightweight championship. It goes to Islam Makhachev with a submission at 2:42 of round 5. And Ken Flo, we learned today that Islam Makhachev had staph infection and that limited some of his training. Perhaps that is neither here nor there, but my biggest takeaway from this fight was Islam Makhachev's ability at that stage of that type of fight to still find that type of takedown and that type of submission. And so much of the lead up centered on Islam Makhachev's submission offense and just how good it was. And over 25 minutes, he found one yet again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to try to contain myself. I was fired up leading into this this show. I have to bottle up all my emotions from Saturday night to Monday afternoon, my man. So forgive me if I go a little crazy. But yeah, that's what makes a champion. That's what separates a champion from maybe the other elite guys. Is you're inevitably going to experience these setbacks, whether it's staph infections, injuries, sicknesses, whatever it is, outside family life stuff. But the best will find a way to persevere. That's exactly what Islam Makhachev did. I think more importantly, though, and I know Khabib Nurmagomedov talked about this, is the lesson that he's going to learn from this win. There was a gut check. Maybe there was like 2 or 3 gut checks during this fight. That's what you get when you fight a guy like a Dustin Poirier, who is not going to go away easily, who's going to get the crowd behind him, who's going to get other people to boo you, even when you're doing good things out there. But Islam's, not only his takedowns and his control was really good. That's what ultimately got him the win. That's what I expected. But he was the superior striker on Saturday night. That's what's so impressive about this guy and why he continues to improve Total strikes landed 147 for Islam to 104 for Poirier. And I know those are all spread out over the course of 5 rounds. But anytime Poirier was able to get any momentum shift, when he started talking trash, when the crowd started getting behind Poirier, it was Islam's sharp strikes, his combinations, that was getting him right back into this fight. And I thought it was just a brilliant performance overall. Not perfect, but it was brilliant, because it is not an easy thing to defeat a guy like a Dustin Poirier.
All right, so you rewatched the fight this morning. If you'd be so kind as to sort of talk us through your analysis, you can go round by round.
Yeah.
I did ask last week how a straight kickboxing match between Dustin Poirier and Islam Makhachev would go, and that was sort of a lean into Islam Makhachev's outstanding striking, offense, and defense. But round by round, Ken Flo, in totality, how did you see these near 25 minutes between these two absolute fucking warriors?
Yes, sir. Round 1 was obviously the most clear, in my opinion. That was domination by Islam, both with his striking, not a whole lot there, but it was domination on the ground, took him down, took his back. It was Poirier who had to get back to round 2, getting off of the canvas with Islam wrapped around his back. That was pretty clear. Round 2, I thought, was very close, perhaps the closest out of all of the rounds that are debatable. However, I thought it was Islam's round as well. Round 3, I thought that there was a momentum shift. That was like a clear momentum shift, I thought, for Dustin Poirier. However, it was killed yet again by the striking of Islam Makhachev. He was just landing the cleaner strikes, whether it was knees or good combinations with his hands. It was Islam that I thought landed the cleaner blows, and because of that, won round 3. Round 4, however, I did give to Dustin Poirier. So I thought it was really close. I thought he did a good job overall. In stopping the takedowns. I thought he was landing a little bit more. He was landing good shots to the body. He was landing with his jab. And of course, we all know what happened in round 5 when Islam was able to get the submission. So it didn't matter who was winning. However, what is a little bit disturbing, a little concerning anyway. So Eric Colon had it 39-37 for Islam. Sal D'Amato had it 39-37 for Islam. Chris Lee had it tied going into round 5, which is, I don't know. I don't know how you can justify that. And yes, round 2 was close, but I don't think you can score that round for Dustin Poirier, in my opinion, if we're being honest. And I don't know. Again, that wasn't the only odd scorecard of the night. However, Islam just did a great job overall, man. He's a problem on the feet and on the ground. He's a problem.
He really is. And you do get the sense, and I hope Arman Tsarukyan and the rest of the division takes this respectfully, but if he is feeling great and he is on, you got to separate him from consciousness the way Adriano Martins did when I was in my 20s, because otherwise he's going to find something, and he's not getting worse, right? He's getting better. This experience is going to prove hugely valuable. So, all the best to the rest of the 55ers, trying to get this guy out of there on a night that maybe he wasn't even feeling all that well.
Absolutely. And having fought with this staph infection, I can explain to you some of the issues that you can kind of experience as a fighter. First of all, you feel a little bit more lethargic, either because your body is fighting the staph infection itself, or sometimes antibiotics just kind of, it hits everybody differently. Anytime I would take antibiotics, I would feel like crap. I would feel slow. I'd feel sluggish. I feel like I never really got enough sleep. My stomach would feel weird. So these are the kind of things that you can experience. And I think Islam perhaps didn't look as sharp as we've seen him in the past. And that could have been a result of maybe either that week or 2 off that he had to take because of that staph infection, preventing the spread, or because of whatever he was on due to that staph infection. Your body's fighting something else. It's not going to be at 100% for most people. But again, as I mentioned before, this is what champions do. They find a way.
Yeah. Dustin Poirier fought a great fight. He really did. I feel like this was the least nervous maybe that Dustin Poirier had ever been for one of his 40 pro MMA fights. He just had a great way about him all week. And we've been able to sort of observe his energy in a lot of different settings. In quarantine at a hotel in Vegas before we all chartered a flight to Abu Dhabi, when he went on to knock out Conor McGregor. And maybe at that time, DC and I felt like he was a little bit tense as we were all watching a New Orleans Saints playoff game. Couldn't have been further from the truth. I thought he executed a lot of things well. There was one time where he had a back and forth with his boxing coach, Dia Davis, and he said, I just don't want to be in front of him too long. And I thought he managed the fight pretty well, but, just a little bit short, but just so many amazing things we could say about both of these athletes. We'll segue to Dustin Poirier in a little bit, but as far as Islam Makhachev is concerned, and I guess near perfection, probably not. But what are some of the things that you think are takeaways for him in terms of just the straight martial arts stuff that are useful, not just the gut check,
Yeah, no, I think that for Islam, I think he's going to realize that he has much better striking, perhaps than he even knew. I think his ability to avoid some of the long-range strikes, to get into the pocket and land some good body shots, really have more confidence with his strikes on the feet, particularly his boxing, I think showed improvements there. He didn't throw as many kicks as I was kind of expecting, but still, he was really sharp. His ability to move his head off the center line, move his body off the center line, land shots to the inside, land shots from the outside. His hooks were landing extremely well. We're hurting Dustin Poirier. So I think that he's going to find even more comfort coming off of that knockout win over Volkanovski, that he is a threat on the feet as well. Now, it's not something that he should just kind of stay there on the feet. He should never avoid his wrestling and ground control game. However, this is the problem when you're facing someone like Islam, and it's what Dustin Poirier mentioned. When you have a lot of weapons in your tool belt, you got to be worried about everything. And for Dustin Poirier, I don't think he was throwing as much because he was so aware and so trying to be prepared for those level changes and takedowns of Islam Makhachev that he wasn't getting off as much on his strikes. And whether it was Islam just being the better, cleaner striker, or whether it was him maybe denying himself some of that volume because he was so kind of ready for those takedowns and level changes of Islam, I don't know, but it certainly has that effect. When you have a great wrestler in front of you, a lot of times you're so worried about that you don't let the hands go, and perhaps that was a part of the problem.
Bravo choke, Darce choke, Islam Makhachev, whatever it was, Ken Flo, tell us about it. He says it's one of his favorite submissions. I mean, what a win for submission offense, right? Some guys, when you get to the ground, they have a way to get you out of there. Even Daniel Cormier talking about a signature rear naked choke, refining that, talking to guys like Ken Flo with all his fucking stripes on his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, right? Tell me about the choke and Islam's ability to find it late against a fellow Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt.
Sometimes we can chalk up a lot of these submissions to the other guy being tired, in Dustin Poirier, of being fatigued mentally, physically, spiritually. It's like, I'm doing everything possible. This guy's still getting me to the ground. Now I want out. I think there was a part of that, but also there was most certainly a sharpness in the technique of that Bravo choke on the part of
Poirier went out, just for the record.
Yeah.
He told Islam that he went out, and then, he tapped and then he went out.
He went out. Yeah, it was tight, dude. It was extremely tight. As soon as Islam locked that head down, the key on this is, and Rogan loves talking about this. He gets a little exciting on this squeeze ability of Islam, and I'm sure that's the case. However, what I thought was going to be the killer, as soon as he locked that in, you see Islam just lean his weight. The choke is not done with the squeezing of the arms. Can it? Yes. How is it really done against anyone and everyone? It's done with your body weight distribution. This is where the Dagestanis are absolute masters of control. So it makes sense that this would be a great submission for them. To me, it was his body weight distribution right on the neck. It doesn't matter how tough you are. Dustin Poirier, we know, is one of the toughest guys to ever enter the sport. Toughness is completely out of the equation. This is physics. This is beautiful Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu technique. And Islam Makhachev had that in spades. The way he distributed that body weight, John, there was no one who was getting out of that choke.
I love it. Thank you. So title fights can be hard to put together, believe it or not. Pay-per-views can be hard to put together with championship doubleheaders. And as such, you're not going to see, in my mind, I don't think, in our lifetime, a mandatory number of title defenses for UFC champions before they can go be pursuant of a belt in a second division. Now, even if you did have a mandatory 3 title defenses, Islam Makhachev has now successfully defended this belt 3 times, twice against Alexander Volkanovski and now against Dustin Poirier. But these divisions, 55 and 70, not only could we sit here and argue that there should be and could be one between them and go 55, 65, 75, but they're is a bevy of contenders in both of these divisions. I mean, Leon Edwards isn't even free right now. He's going to fight Bilal Muhammad, and you can be sure if Bilal wins that fight, Leon is going to have some sort of foundation for a rematch, I would think. And then you have Shavkat Rakhmonov and all these other guys coming up, right? So at lightweight, you have Arman Tsarukyan, and that's the fight that the fan base wants to see, as Dana White suggested at the post-fight press conference. You know, far be it from me to try to get in Islam's way, and even if he would be the betting favorite against some of these guys at 70, I just don't think now is the time when we have an obvious number one contender and a great backdrop for the second meeting between Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan.
That's the fight you got to make. You know, I think we need to restrict Islam from running up a division, and he may do very well, potentially could win. I'm not so bullish on that necessarily. Leon Edwards showing that defensive wrestling against Kamaru Usman showed this is a guy who knows how to stop takedowns, even against the best in the UFC, like Kamaru Usman. So I think that Islam gets his takedowns mainly up against the cage. I think Leon Edwards has shown that he is pretty much a master at defending takedowns up against there. Arman Tsarukyan, I think, makes for a very interesting challenge. I would still be leaning the way of Islam as of right now. But if you're looking for a guy who is very fast, I think faster than Islam, who has knockout power, who has wrestling defensive abilities, and has been in there with him, Arman Tsarukyan is the fight you got to make. He just beat Charles Oliveira in a close one. And he is another guy who continues to improve and continues to impress. That's the fight you got to make, John.
There are so many top 12 lightweights with ties to American top team. Arman Tsarukyan is one of them.
Yep.
As such, and we could go on and on. Renato Moicano, Mateusz Gamrot, Grant Dawson outside the top 15 right now. But as such, this was the cleaner result divisionally. If you had to do a Makhachev-Poirier rematch, this could have potentially been disastrous for someone like Arman Tsarukyan. So at least as far as the 55ers are concerned, this is a clean result. How about Dustin Poirier? Every time you think maybe the legend can't grow any broader without an undisputed title, he even finds a way to do that, and this is likely third crack at the undisputed title. There are so few guys in the world that can actually relate to this guy on an empathetic level, having 3 times challenged for the undisputed lightweight or featherweight championship as you did, and not realizing that belt. So what do you think Dustin's dealing with as far as that is concerned, knowing that he fought an absolutely great fight against the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world?
He really did. And I think it's a testament to the likability of Dustin Poirier. I didn't hear one person that I talked to about this fight that didn't want to see him win. And it shows that when you have a lot of exciting fights, right? When you've proven to be that kind of guy, when you've shown that kind of underdog status and have answered the bell repeatedly, and when you've grown over the course of your career, when you've proven yourself inside and outside of the cage, Dustin Poirier wears his heart on his sleeve. This is a guy that has, talked a lot about his personal life, his upbringing. And it sounds cheesy to say, but it absolutely is not in the case of Dustin Poirier. This guy is a champion in life. You look at everything this guy has faced. He's defeated all of his demons. Everything that has tried to pull him back from where he came from, he has surpassed with flying colors. He didn't need to win this belt, in my opinion. He is a Hall of Famer through and through. If this is his last fight, it's been an absolute pleasure watching him, and I think this would be the way to go out. I'm not sure that's going to be the case. The money is something that's going to be very enticing. There's a lot of people, Volkanovski included, that would love to face Dustin Poirier, but this would be an awesome way to go out. This is the kind of Dustin Poirier that you want to remember. You want to remember this kind of guy, the guy that would not go away, who would fight to the very end, and who always gave himself the best possibility of winning each and every fight. The growth that he's shown inside and outside the cage, the guy's an absolute legend.
Now, health is wealth. Kenny didn't have it at the end of his career. As such, your last fight was for the undisputed UFC featherweight title against Jose Aldo in 2011. I do think this would be a fantastic note upon which to go out for Dustin Poirier. I understand it's going to be very difficult knowing there is at the very least a 7-figure payday on the other side. He and Alexander Volkanovski certainly could headline a pay-per-view. Volkanovski has been of an appetitive nature for that fight for a very long time. Even I think before Volk challenged Islam Makhachev for the lightweight championship, he was invoking the names Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier in our fighter meetings. So I was not at all surprised to see the Volk man start the campaign for a fight against Dustin Poirier. And I think that fight makes a lot of sense. You could certainly argue maybe, a little more downside always for the bigger guy, right? When you're fighting, if you're Dustin, a smaller man. But I do think that is a fight that would make a lot of sense. I just don't know what Dustin Poirier would be trying to gain legacy-wise, right? It's a financial gain, having one more Mount Rushmore type scalp, right? You're talking about a Dustin Poirier who has 2 wins over Conor McGregor, 2 wins over Max Holloway, a win over Justin Gaethje, a win over Eddie Alvarez. You and I would argue he didn't need the fucking undisputed title. So does he need to donate more brain cells potentially and get a win over Alexander Volkanovski? I just don't know. So even though going into fight week, I didn't think at all that this would be the last fight for Dustin Poirier, given the nature of this fight, right? Some people thought Islam was going to win by first round submission. I think it'd be a good note upon which to go out, but I do hope that that we get one last dance, even if it's sort of built and billed as such.
Yeah, and I think for Volkanovski, if this was, and I love the call out, it makes a lot of sense for Volk, and would certainly give him even more of that legacy that he so desperately wants or really doesn't need, but I guess he wants more. But it doesn't make sense for Dustin Poirier, because if you beat a guy who's a 145 pounder, everyone's going to go, well, you beat a guy a little lower weight class. He doesn't need that, right? He just doesn't. He's faced the best in his division. He can definitely ride off into the sunset, and everyone's going to remember him as the stud that he is. So I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. Not to mention, he does not need to come back from a financial perspective. That makes everything way easier. How many times have we seen great fighters that really needed that money and had to come back because of that? He does not need to. He's doing very well outside of the cage as well with his other ventures that he has going on. So congrats to Dustin Poirier.
Doesn't have to do television if he doesn't want to. One proposition I would throw out there, and I will not be the first to do so, a trilogy fight with Max Holloway for the BMF title. Ooh. Now, perhaps having that belt on the mantle would be something that would appetize Dustin Poirier after some time away. This is a man who just fought Benoit Saint-Denis in the preparation on the front end in March, and then fought Islam Makhachev on the front end of June. So Holloway Poirier, I think, makes some sense, but he already has 2 wins over the guy. He is not seemingly of an appetitive nature for a 4th fight against Conor McGregor. I'm sort of stalling here as I think about names that may be welterweight that would appeal to him. A Colby Covington fight sounds like a whole lot of noise, although Ken Flo seems to maybe John, like that one.
You're making some really good suggestions, actually. I kind of like it, but again, for Dustin going out against who many believe is the best pound for pound fighter on the planet, I can barely talk, in Islam Makhachev, I think this is the way to do it. There's always going to be some fight that is enticing, right? And then when you're at the status of someone like a Dustin Poirier, the money is going to be there as well. I just don't think he needs it. I also think that he's tired, dude. He's tired of these long training camps. He's tired of being away from his beautiful daughter and family. I think that he's given it all, man. He's been fighting since he was a teenager.
Oh yeah.
I think there comes a time where you got to go, this was my best. I'm going to go out there. I'm cool with this. I'm cool with this legacy. And he certainly can be.
All right, well, congrats to all athletes at UFC 302. We're just scratching the surface as far as this recap is concerned, but Islam Makhachev, just an incredible, incredible champion, and it's going to be interesting to see the direction in which they go with him. Congrats to Dustin Poirier, beyond, I think, a lot of people's expectations in defeat. So that was your fight of the night, and Islam Makhachev also got a performance bonus. I love it, and Kevin Holland getting a performance bonus as well. Can't wait to talk Ken Flo through that potential dislocation or break. We also have Ray Longo scheduled to join us here in about 15 or 20 minutes. I don't know exactly what Longo does deep into the night, but as we were trying to reschedule this program for a skosh earlier today, Ray was a hard man to get a hold of. So 12:45 p.m. Eastern scheduled to have your regular Ray Longo Minute. Also coming up Wednesday, we'll have another episode for you as we look into Jared Cannonier and Nasruddin Imavov. Louisville, Kentucky. Not Louisville. Louisville, Kentucky. Next Saturday, June 8th. That is live on ESPN. All right, back to the mixed martial arts in a second, ladies and gentlemen. But we are this close to crowning an NBA champion. Ken Flo and I are hoping our Boston Celtics can get it done. And with the action heating up on the court, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, has an outstanding offer for new customers. You can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,500. You just deposit at least $5, and you'll get a bonus back equal to your first bet if it doesn't hit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code AFPOD. That's code AFPOD for new customers to get a no-sweat bet up to $1,500 if your first bet doesn't hit, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, 1-800-GAMBLER.net. In New York, 877-8-HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling, 888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. One no-sweat bet per new customer issued as one bonus bet based on amount of initial losing bet. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.co/bball for eligibility, wagering, and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. You never know which of these live events are going to just shatter your voice. Man, this was a lot of talking on Saturday night. I mean, I'll do nothing but read advertisements at UFC 303 here in a few weeks, so it'll be DC and Rogan calling those fights for you folks, right? We weren't necessarily sponsor heavy at UFC 302, but as I look at this fight card, and, you know, fouls can extend fights. There was a lot of conversation about referees and judges and not necessarily knowing how to handle certain situations. But the night began with 5 straight decisions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of the first 9 were decisions. And then the last 2 fights of the night were long affairs as well. So it was a long night of talking, but a memorable night nonetheless. Let us get to the co-main event. And seemingly in no other sport are you required to both entertain and win, right? Even in a 1-0 baseball game, pitcher gets credit. So Sean Strickland over Paulo Costa. Say what you will about the wayward nature of the scorecards. 50-45 for Strickland, 49-46 for Sean. And then somebody else had it 46-49 for Paulo Costa, which I think, honestly, I don't know if it was David Torelli and if, in fact, he's gone on the record, but I think, Kenny, he might have just honestly messed up the red and blue corners in a couple fights this night. Perhaps not, but Sean Strickland, in my mind, I wouldn't go so far as to suggest he pitched a near shutout, but I do think he won at least 4, if not 5 rounds. And, you know, at the end of the fight, we have people sort of apologizing for the fight. You know, there's a lot to sort of dive into here, but Sean Strickland is the number 1 contender. He maintained that position. And as I said to him in the fighter meeting, if you win the fight, especially like this guy should sit out for 18 months if need be. He is title shot worthy. There's nothing else for Sean right now. What'd you make of the co-main event?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I have no problem with the 50-45 win for Strickland. I have no problem with the 49-46. I think that's fine, as long as it's scored for Strickland. If you have that scored for the other guy, Paulo Costa, I think, I'm not sure what you're looking at. So for me, I think this was kind of the way that Strickland had to fight him. You know, when you're facing a guy with the kind of physical characteristics and abilities of someone like Paulo Costa, you have to understand you're probably not going to be the stronger guy necessarily. You may not be the bigger guy. Yeah, and you're probably not going to be more powerful guy. So the way you lose that fight is by making it about those physical characteristics. It's about going in there and trading in the pocket with someone like Paulo Costa. That's how Costa was going to win this fight. And Strickland did not allow for that to happen. I thought it was a brilliant performance. I thought it was brilliant tactics on the part of Strickland and his team. That's what he needed to do. The way that he was stealing the rounds against Paulo Costa was very intelligent. He was walking Costa down the way I had predicted. He was backing Costa up. And if you're backing Costa up, you're taking away so much of his offense. And the way that Strickland does that is behind that very awkward shell and behind that awkward rhythm that he has. And for Costa, he could not figure it out after maybe the first couple minutes of round round one. He landed some good leg kicks in round one. Looked like he was well on his way. Strickland started limping a little bit and dealing with something, but the toughness of Strickland pulled through, and the lack of focus, in my opinion, of Costa came through as well. Just kind of would lose focus, would lose that kind of tuning in a little bit, and allow Strickland back into the round and allow him to kind of land some shots and stumble him and almost drop him. So Strickland, again, one of the most consistent performers in the UFC as of late, and that's why I was so high on him. Just a great performance from Strickland, not from a performer standpoint as far as, oh man, that was so exciting, just from a tactic standpoint, from a technical standpoint. Strickland, I thought, fought a pretty perfect fight against Costa.
There's a quote out there from Paulo Costa and Code Blue, Cody Mero. Yeah, here it is. This is what Paulo Costa posted on Instagram. Heretofore, and again, by the way, this is the attitude that a lot of us were hoping he would bring into this competition. And yes, Paulo Costa had his moments, did against Marvin Vettori as well, right? But just not enough of them in domination. And when the corner tells you that you have the lead, I know there were differing opinions on the broadcast as to whether or not that was a good thing, but no. We're not banking rounds here against Sean Strickland and sitting on any sort of lead. Here's the quote after the fact from Paulo Costa, and I'll put a heretofore in front of it. I won't give a fuck. Fuck points or conserving energy or fuck anything about that. I will come to take heads off, and this is who I am. This is the kind of fighter I am and the fighter who people expect that I perform, so I will do that. Fuck points. I've had enough of this. Even the first round that I was 100% sure that I won, some people thought I lost. Fuck them. I will come to take heads off. That's it. That's who I am. So Joe Rogan has talked about this on broadcast, that maybe the Israel Adesanya fight took away some of his confidence, and we haven't seen that forward-moving killer. We've had big wins, the Luke Rockhold win. We've had big moments, the wheel kick against Robert Whittaker, but not necessarily the performance in totality. And he's 33 years of age, right? What do you make of that from Costa after the fact, when a lot of people felt like he had 25 minutes and a canvas to do this just, 48 hours ago?
My translation of that quote is, I just need to go hard, bro. And I don't think that's the perfect solution here. This is a very basic kind of idea, and that's all well and good. And you could say that perhaps that would help. For me, what I see is a technical, barrier in his ability to know how to move forward without getting hit first. It's either he's running into leg kicks against Adesanya or running into jabs against other guys, feeling hesitant and then unsure of what to do. He needs a guy that is going to back up and let him kind of dictate what happens. He needs a guy who's going to kind of be a little bit slower on volume than him. And that's where he can kind of look good. Costa likes feeling comfortable. He likes kind of being the bully. Who wouldn't in this situation? But for me, he needs a better understanding of the striking game, of how to move forward without getting hit. Angles, feints, movement, footwork, all these things need to be dialed in a little bit more to open up his offense. He could have gone a little harder, but he's going to run into strikes too, and he was getting dropped. Right. So I think he's got to work some things out as far as the striking goes.
Yeah, you got to be real careful against Sean Strickland. And let us sort of be clear, I'm not the expert in this room, but Sean Strickland is really, really good. And I think lost in some of the persona is just how good he is and just how much he has refined this very hard to beat style. There's no reason in my mind, Kenny, for him to fight the winner of Khamzat Chimaev and Robert Whittaker. And it would seem to me that if Khamzat Chimaev beats Robert Whittaker, he would be another guy that would be idling and waiting for a championship opportunity. Whittaker would then have beaten Paulo Costa and Khamzat Chimaev in succession. He'd be title shot worthy. It looks like it's going to be Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya. But Sean Strickland has been the company man at least thrice over in my mind, right? Let's talk about him putting the number 4 ranking on the line against Alex Pereira, right? His UFC pay-per-view debut, if I'm not mistaken. Then stepping into a main event against Nassourdini Mavov, then stepping into a main event against Abus Magomedov, and then stepping in against Israel Adesanya and making a relatively quick turn. So I don't know what Sean Strickland's net worth is. I don't know if it's Bank of America or Chase, but I'd imagine it's a pretty good checking account balance. Guy needs to wait for a title fight. And I said the same thing to Bilal Muhammad, that it might be 18, 24 months. And I love seeing Sean Strickland crack a mic, Kenny. And say, I've been the company man. I'm going to wait now. And I think he absolutely should.
I think that's exactly what he should do, John. I agree. Will he do it though? I don't know. Similar to Volkanovski when he kind of was just kind of training casually, got the call from the UFC on this short notice fight against Makhachev, decided to take it. I know that Strickland kind of deals with some similar things, outside of the cage, where perhaps he just wants to go out there and fight and prove himself and get right back in there. He's making great money, but this is the time where he needs to kind of chill, wait, hone in on his game. Yes, get right back into training, but use this as valuable time to get better, because it might be another 6 months or more, probably more, before he does get that title shot, because there's a lot of things that need to happen here. So, he put himself in a great position. This was a huge fight for him to get right back into that title picture. But yes, he needs to take time off.
So the fight game is crazy. And I would, on the front end of what I'm about to say, pray that Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler holds together for UFC 303 on June 29th. But as we sit here on June 3rd, unless the story has advanced, the pressure is supposed to be going on right now, and it's not. So not necessarily a great sign. I do think the fight is still together. But the fight game is crazy.
Yeah.
And things happen, right? Stranger things have happened than seeing Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis have a rematch for the undisputed UFC middleweight championship June 29th here in a few weeks. Sean just fought a hard 25-minute fight. I'm not suggesting that he go do that, right? And the weight cut, no, obviously not, right? I mean, would he go to Perth as a backup? I mean, there's just a lot of different situations.
Well, that's the thing with these two big middleweight fights. One of those guys drop out. You don't think the UFC is going to call Sean, hey, man, and maybe there's another 7 figures in store for you. And now he has to take the fight in some way. So, yeah, man, a lot of things can change. But assuming things are playing out the way it should, Strickland should take that time off. This was a big win. I'm sure he trained really hard for it. These 5-round camps, dude, are really tough. So hopefully he gives himself a little bit of a break physically, mentally, spiritually.
And I love Paulo Costa as a human being. I know he and Sean are close. I think there might be some plans for those two to actually train together on the back end of this co-main event. But I do hope that Costa can sort of unleash some of that aggression in a technical, proficient way, because there's a lot of desire, especially in that corner, and his brother. And I know sometimes he doesn't always show up on time for practice, but he really is a hardworking individual. And I would stop short of suggesting that he has underachieved, having realized a world title fight. But I remember, being on the equator in Fortaleza in 2017 and watching him stotch Gareth McClellan and thinking, this dude really is the goods. And, even though he has been at times, it's a couple straight losses here to begin 2024 for Paulo Costa. All right, speaking of a couple straight losses, that was Kevin Holland's reality going into this middleweight return against Michal Oleksiejczuk. He gets it done by technical submission, Ken Flo. Armbar comes at 134 of round one. A lot to unpack here, Ken Flo. So unpack the Toomey suitcase for us. What'd you make of the submission win for Kevin Holland?
Man, what a fight. I mean, again, we know that Oleksiejczuk is very dangerous. He's got nasty hands. He's very aggressive. He said he was going to go out there and try to force Holland to try to take him down. Well, he ended up taking Holland down with his fist, and Holland had to show his jiu-jitsu prowess out there, utilize those long legs to wrap up a triangle, was able to get his wits back, and ultimately finished with an arm lock that was absolutely nasty. And now, this was a train wreck that we just saw coming. I mean, that's about as good of a control as you're going to get when it comes to isolating an arm away from the torso. And I'm watching this and I'm like, where exactly does Oleksiejczuk think he's going to go? Like, where is he going to go? There's one way that this is going to end, and it's going to end in an arm break. And maybe he gets up out after the arm break, but what is he going to do after that? And I love the toughness. I love the determination, but at a certain point, dude, like, you need your arms to continue training and to continue being successful in the sport. What are you doing? I love the toughness, but man, he was not going to get out of that. And Kevin Holland gave him his opportunities too. It's like, Kevin's like, are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this, dude? Are you sure? Like, that's the beauty of like superior grappling control, is actually you have control of whether you want to hurt someone or not. And Holland, had to go the other route and actually hurt Michal Oleksiejczuk. So it is unfortunate there, but yeah, just odd. And then after he's kind of complaining about it,
So
I don't know, man.
All right, so I feel badly for the Polish fighter here a little bit, Michał Oleksiejczyk, right? Biggest opportunity of his UFC career, took it on relatively short notice because it was that big an opportunity against a top, I don't know, 15 or 20 UFC superstar in Kevin Holland. But yes, Kenny, the question's coming. If there was a dislocation here at the very least, why is he protesting? Because adrenaline's flying around and there's no pain? Like, why the adamant protest?
I don't know, dude. I really don't know. It was very confusing. Clearly there was an arm injury, whether it was a break or dislocation, most likely a dislocation. But yeah, it was only going to end that way. With that kind of control, it was only going to end that way. Great job by Kevin Holland of keeping his composure, locking up that submission win after getting hurt. And fighting at 185 pounds when he's been fighting at 170. So awesome win by Kevin Holland, one of the more likable guys in the sport. As you mentioned, one of the stars in the sport as well. So great way for him to kind of get back into the win column.
All right, about 30 minutes left in our live UFC 302 recap. And as many of you know, when we launched this very program in April of 2015, Ray Longo was a part of it. Little did we know he'd become the star of the show. But let us get to the Ray Longo minute just to keep the Minutemen happy, right? We booked Laura Sanko and Dan Hardy to keep our overall viewership happy based upon those requests, and they always want Ray Longo. To what extent did we fuck with your Monday here, switching up the showtime 3 times, Ray?
Brutal, but listen, when you're a company man, it doesn't matter. But I'm not saying it was easy today. I almost ran about 4 people over trying to get to the gym.
All right, so here, thank you for your commitment to this show, and we really do appreciate that. But it's up to you to sort of prioritize things in your life, right? And I say that with all due respect. We're not going to pay you less per quarter if you can't come today, right? So, but we were delaying the show for that press conference, and then it's like, how long are we just going to sit around and not recap UFC 302, right? I love Connor, but we can't let him control everything here, right? So, we had to move up the show, so we appreciate you, but you didn't have to rush. Like, if you can't make the show, we're doing another episode on Wednesday. I mean, you want to come back Wednesday too?
I'll come back Wednesday. Yeah, but
what
it is? I tell you, listen, that's who I am. I try to make it. I just try to make it work. I feel like listen, it's fun, but I feel like it is a job. I know your heart's and Kenny's heart is totally into it. So
you're the man.
I don't know.
Well, that means a lot. No, it really does. But I just want you to know you can always, as the star of the show, pull that card.
Ray, did you have to leave the Italian American Club over there on Long Island? What happened?
Not today. No.
Okay, all right.
All right, so talk us through your Saturday night. A lot of decisions before we arrived at Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier, huh?
Yeah, crazy. But man, I think that fight kind of saved the night for me. Man, Poirier's just what a great performance. I had that fight really close going into the 5th too. I thought I did think Islam looked a little off that night, but it could have been because what Dustin was doing too. But Kenny, I felt like even when he got to the clinch, he looked like he wanted that tie clinch, but then didn't really do anything. Looked like he was almost wanted to take a break there, and I think he got lit up a little bit in that clinch position. So it looked like it was a little off to me. I don't know if those staph infection rumors something.
Right. Yeah, he did have a staph infection. So that's what we were talking about a little bit, is that it seemed like that may have slowed him down a little bit, whether it's the antibiotics as a result, or your body just fighting that damn thing, or taking that week off or so, whatever it is that you have to take off, could have played an effect. But of course, Dustin Poirier was really good in those situations and made it definitely difficult for Islam in a lot of those situations.
And I'll tell you a little takeaway, too, for Dustin, too. He did hit the switch finally, right? He tried that about 20 times in a row with Khabib. He got nowhere. So he tightened something up. And, Matt was always big on that. If you got one thing off that you were working on, it's just, it does make for a little bit more rewarding of a situation. So I think he did a couple of things in that fight. I did think he was getting, I don't want to get to, I wasn't looking at it like that, but he was doing great in the stand-up, obviously. Yeah. He did great, defending the first couple of rounds, and he made for a really, really great fight, whatever the reasons were or whatever. But there were just a couple of things I saw in Islam I thought were a little off, but he still, he still grinded it out and got the job done, which is, that's the end of the story. You know what I mean? Even if he wasn't, whatever he was feeling.
Now, we don't score defense. I know Kenny and I felt pretty convicted that Islam Makhachev was winning the fight, but one judge did have it 2-2 going into the fifth. And had Islam Makhachev not found that submission, perhaps this ends up being a split decision. But Ray, how about his ability in whatever weathered condition, right, bleeding all over the place, to find that, tertiary level takedown in his arsenal and find a submission at that stage of the fight?
Yeah, no, listen, these guys are good, man. That guy is listen, he's at the top of the food chain for a reason. And you kind of expect no less out of him. But yeah, when the whatever he did, the ankle pick or swinging the leg around.
That was sick.
It was sick.
That took the air out of the balloon right there. I mean, at that very end, it was like, I've never seen anyone hit that in the UFC. You'll see it in wrestling with like high level guys.
Yeah,
but seeing that kind of takedown was pretty cool. And Dustin was fighting his ass off. And I think after that, he was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. I think it kind of mentally maybe broke him. But you kind of see that in Thai boxing sometimes. When they grab the leg, they'll swing that thing all over the place.
Yeah.
To get you, you know what I'm saying? To get you to turn. Because I know Aljo does that a lot. Not in that position.
Yeah, and MMA, you don't see it too often. I haven't anyway.
Same concept, though. But that was absolutely beautiful. And again, cream always rises to the top. That guy's a champ for a fucking reason, period.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. And Dustin, as good as he is, seems to never get that big fight. You know what I mean? It kind of sucks. Because the guy's a legend. What he's accomplished, who he's fought, I think is unmatched. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it would have been nice to see him get that gold ring at the end, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Cream rises to the top, just like Longo's hair product today, huh? Looks like it's rising to the top. It looks okay.
Okay, that's it.
All right, shout out to Justin Flores on Instagram. How about this, Ken Flo, at JFlowJudo? That takedown, right, the swoosh or the golf swing finish. Love this variation that Islam Makhachev was able to pull off on a barefoot and sweaty Dustin Poirier in yesterday's title fight. Great option when finishing a single leg with two-handed grip around the foot. We're getting fucking technical today, huh? So, Ray, what time did you wake up today?
Today, probably 11.
Okay, I pushed out a tweet at 8 a.m. Like, I'm ready to go now, Raymond. What are you doing? Anyway.
I would have won at 11:30, though, for sure.
Yeah. So, all right. So, Sean Strickland, I know a lot of people relative to their expectations felt shortchanged by this co-main event between Sean Strickland and Paulo Costa. I get very frustrated when there's a dominant performance and it's not good enough for people. But even Eric Nixick, our good friend, was over sort of, apologizing a little bit to Hunter and Dana for the nature of that fight right in front of my face. What'd you make of Sean Strickland's performance in the co-main event? And I guess in a broader sense, like, this is the only sport, man, where you need fucking style points to please everybody. It's not fair.
Well, listen, the MMA critics are brutal. I think we know that. But look, Strickland does what he always does. He was the constant in that fight, right? It was Paulo Costa who didn't come forward and decided to take a different approach. But Strickland does what he always does. He does it really good. He's comfortable at what he does. And if you can't make him uncomfortable, it's just going to be a long night. But it wasn't like he was going backwards. He was trying to make the fight. So I think it was on Paulo Costa to try to negate some of that stuff and make it a fight. So I think Strickland, I think he didn't do anything we haven't seen him do before. And I think I said it last week, unless he's so used to this type of fight, you're not going to beat him at it. You're just not.
Right.
If you don't mix in some wrestling or I don't know, he's good at what he does. He fights. Strickland knows how to fight within Strickland. He's got it down to a science, and until something changes, he's going to keep winning those fights 100%.
Kenny, sometimes we have these 5-round co-main events, and certainly I didn't have to tell you that perhaps a 5-rounder would favor Sean Strickland more than Paulo Costa in this particular matchup, right? But I would imagine Sean asked for that, and Paulo maybe could have been adamant about 15. I mean, do you think this fight would have been different, Kenny, if it's 15 minutes? Like Cody writing in the chat here, I feel like they shortchanged us by making it 25. I always want the extra 10 minutes.
Based on what we saw, I don't think so. Because, okay, let's say Costa could have been like, hey, I'm going to save, my energy for the 5-rounder, whereas in the 15-minute fight, he could have gone more balls to the wall. I don't know. I mean, I think that Strickland would have given him a problem either way. I think Strickland would have fought differently as well, and probably would have upped his pace and volume as well. So I think Strickland probably would have won either way. But when you're a fighter or you're going to, engage in any kind of combative situation, you want all the odds in your favor, or as many of them in your favor. And I think this was Strickland and his team going, well, if we have a choice, or if we can, let's try to push for this 5-rounder, because we know we're going to come out looking a little bit better rounds 4 and 5 than Costa most likely.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Kenny on one thing. It's like, if it was a 3-round fight, look, 3-round fight, I mean, the first 2 rounds were, I'm not saying sketchy, but I could see even, and his corner could have been doing a mind thing on him, but they thought he was up 2-1. But what Kenny says is, I'm sure Strickland would have adjusted to the 3 rounds also and probably picked it up because, he knows how to pace himself like that. So who the hell knows? But I do think 3 rounds would have definitely favored Paulo Costa more than it would have favored Strickland, because I think Strickland's one of those guys. I mean, you could see he's got another 2 or 3 rounds in him. He could have won 8 rounds. 7 rounds, 6 rounds. You know what I mean? So Costa was the guy that was more struggling at the end than he was. So brilliant move for the 5 rounds. It's a hard crowd to please, but if you're really into the technical side, what Strickland does is pretty cool. He marches you down. He keeps it pretty basic. His defense, although it doesn't look orthodox, he's hard to hit. He's got what he does down really good. And the only way he does that is because he does it every fucking day.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's the example you use when people say, I just want to drill and not spar. Then I think you take more of a risk, even though it could work out for you. But he knows exactly what's going on because that's his neighborhood, man. He don't give a fuck.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Know?
His vision's outstanding. All right, a few more minutes here with the great Ray Longo as we rifle through this pay-per-view at UFC 302. I have a great relationship with Alex Morono, and maybe somewhat regrettable that I turned to Joe Rogan at the end of the fight and I sort of said that that's kind of what I feel like I would look like after 60 seconds in a fight. Now, I exercise 6 days a week. But if I were to go into an MMA fight right now, I would gas in like 2 minutes, right? The only thing I've done is a 9-minute tough man fight, 3-3-minute rounds with lacrosse gloves and helmets. And even in pretty good shape in college, chasing girls, I have never been more gassed in my life. Round 3 was us with both of our hands on our knees. So all respect to Alex Morono. That's got to be fucking humiliating to have that type of cardio abandonment live on pay-per-view, Raymond, no?
Well, first off, you did three threes isn't a joke for a guy that's never done anything. That's not
awful. And to train, I was lifting weights and running. I wasn't sparring.
Yeah, right. You weren't doing the right type of thing. Yeah, I get that. But 3 threes, I could see 3 twos. 3 threes is not a joke at that level. But anyway,
I would imagine the next year they scaled it back to 3 twos.
I would hope with a couple of months of training, you would have looked better than Morono looked that night. I mean, I have faith in you.
Kenny, this is coming to you as well. I mean, what were your thoughts on Morono? I had Cody try to chase some comments from him after the fact. Nico Price wins by unanimous decision, but gosh, man, that's a tough visual for Morono. And I know at times maybe he's gassed a little bit, but this is going to be one that is a little tough to watch back.
Yeah, I think so. It could have been a conditioning issue, could very well have been a conditioning issue. I think a lot of it also has to do with efficiency. I think that's a big part of it, of how you manage that over the course of your career. And, how much are you putting into your punches? Is that necessary? Do you have to do that? What's being done with structure? What's being done with your footwork? All that stuff. And I think he's going to learn from that. But also facing a guy like Nico Price, who just makes it a barn burner every single time. It's just hectic when you're in there against a Nico Price. And if you're not prepared for that kind of a battle, it can get even the most savvy of veterans. And I think that played a part as well.
Hey,
yeah,
Ray.
I agree with Kenny with that, though, John. But I think they did say, I think you guys said on the broadcast, he just fought last month. And in that weight cut, doing the weight cut too close together, that's definitely not going to benefit you.
Yeah.
And what Kenny says, Nico Price, I mean, you have no idea where those punches are coming from.
Oh, yeah.
Chaos. You know what I mean? So, I mean, if you want to get karate chopped right in the middle of a combination, You got the right guy. Let me tell you, that guy. There was stuff happening in there that I was going, what the hell is going on? This is great.
Yeah.
But not a good look for Morono. Hopefully he bounces back from that. He seems like a nice kid.
Yeah.
Big win for Nico, man. That's good. He's a good
dude.
Big he's a good dude.
Nico. And he was the underdog, right, in that fight?
Yes.
Yep.
He was the underdog. Real quick, Ray. Over under right now, 5.5 kids for Nico Price.
Well, I cheated because I heard I think he's over. I think he's got 8 kids, you said.
He has 6 and a 7th on the way.
Oh, my gosh. God bless him.
Cash deal. God bless him, did you say?
No wonder he's
Yes,
tough.
I guess God blessed him.
Last time I saw him, I think he had his wife and a couple of kids. He had like 3. So he's booking. He's on it. He's not stopping.
I don't even know. I don't even know. That's a lot of procreation.
You have to be a parent to really appreciate somebody telling you they have 7 kids, because somebody in that house has a lot of patience.
Yeah.
So basically, Nico Price is going to be fighting until like 2045.
Well, right. Well, hey, we joke, right? But
he signed a 94-year deal agreement.
Well, hey, let's not pretend his chin hasn't been tested and, failed him most recently against Robbie Lawler. I know he took some time off in advance of this one, right? But probably doubled his paycheck, which is pretty good given his longevity, right? Probably doubled his paycheck by beating Alex Morono. So, yeah, Kemflo, to your point, you got to feel good for Nico Price. But, yeah, I mean, that's full anxiety as a parent hearing that somebody has 7 children that you got to
listening to that is that's actually brutal.
Yeah.
I'm saying 3. What do you have? 3 kids, right?
Yeah. I mean, and my dog counts as a dependent as well. All right. So I want to rifle through some of these other performances.
Yeah.
And Raymond, how about the Nardu Deborah trained Randy Rude Boy Brown becoming a UFC welterweight contender? I know he's not ranked right now in the top 10. I don't even know if he's top 15, but he got tested again, a real tried and true warrior in Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos. And I don't know. I just love Randy Brown, the human being, and feel really good for Randy kicking off the pay-per-view with another big win, his 7th in his last 8 starts. Your thoughts on that, Raymond?
Yeah, 100%, man. He's learned. He always learned. He always knew how to use his range, but he's sharp, man, from the outside. Very sharp. I'd like to see a little more going for it sometimes. You know what I mean? I think he lets these guys kind of come back for a round, and I don't think he has to. But all in all, I mean, I've seen him in the gym. The guy's huge.
Yeah.
For that weight, he's huge and he's hard to get to. Because when you got that height, those knees up the middle always freeze you. His boxing is on point. He looks like he's having. I think that's my point. I think sometimes it looks like he's having too much fun. I'd love to see him get that, fuck you and just keep coming forward. I think he'd knock a lot of guys out.
I agree. Kenny, what are your thoughts on Randy Brown, both this past Saturday night and in totality? He's won 7 of 8, only lost in there to Jack Della Maddalena in Perth. But he's 6'3", styles make fights. I'm intrigued by Randy Brown at 70.
I am as well. I think Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos is a very dangerous guy. He's good on the ground. He's dangerous on the feet. And I thought Randy, aside from some bad spots in rounds 2, looked phenomenal. I think that I agree with Ray that he's still coming into that like confidence part of his game. It was mostly there, but there's times where he doesn't throw his hands when he should. He's blessed with all this length, with all this physical ability. He needs to unleash more of that and have confidence in that length and saying, I have the accuracy. If I land even right down the middle, this guy can't touch me. And there were moments, there were flashes of brilliance here against Dos Santos, who is a very, very good striker. Giving up his back in round 2, I think, was frustrating for him. But we saw him battle back in round 3 and bring the pain. And even at the end of that round, he took Dos Santos' back. So, listen, I think it wasn't a perfect performance, but this was one of those similar to Islam where you say, I got the win. I made some mistakes. I still got the win. I can learn from this win and be better for it. So he's accruing really valuable experience in the UFC. And I think for Randy Brown and his team, I think this is one of those that you can take away a lot of positives from. And if you're another welterweight in that division, I think you want to stay away from someone like Randy Brown at this stage of the game because he is elevating his game. He's gaining confidence. He's gaining skills, and he's going to be a problem for a lot of people now. So I think he's come out. He's come out and he's arrived. He just needs to believe it a little bit more.
Yeah, and I love the word accruing. I think that's a great word for that because, again, even he was in not bad shape, but he was in a tough position. And, like, when he got out, man, he finished that round. You maybe almost give a case for stealing the round back. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
I think those little things, like you say, they accrue, and then it really helps out as you're growing as a fighter to just get through some of those spots and know that you can. It just makes you a better fighter.
He called out the 10th ranked Jeff Neal. I think that fight makes a lot of sense. We'll see if Jeff Neal is receptive to putting that top 10 ranking on the line against the unranked Randy Brown. But very exciting for Randy Brown to have come out the other side of that very big Jack Della Maddalena fight now with 3 consecutive wins. All right, a lot of other directions in which we can go. Ray, before we let you go, any other fights that you want to speak on? I thought the featured prelim was really interesting. Just to look at this Cesar Almeida, who has a kickboxing win over Alex Pineda, to look at his MMA progression and lack thereof in certain spots against Roman Kopylov. I thought Kopylov fought a really smart fight at times to sort of get his momentum back. Jailton Almeida taking care of business. You like to see that. Grant Dawson was going to call out Jalen Turner if he got the microphone. I don't think he did after that fight against Joe Selecki. And then Jake Matthews, UFC debut at 19, still getting it done here in his 20th UFC appearance over Philip Rowe. So I didn't know if there was anything preliminarily, Raymond, that you wanted to sound off on before we let you get back to the sweating and the exercise.
Preliminary, no. But I did like the Jake Matthews fight, and I think that's a good matchup. Philip Rowe against Randy Brown. Let's see, with the height, they negate the height problem, with the distance. I think that might be an interesting, fun fight. Randy Brown, I think, I agree with you, though. I'd stay away from Randy Brown at this point, but that could be a fun fight. But I thought Jake Matthews did a great job of getting past the length of Philip Rowe, who's a really talented kid also, who's got great boxing.
So if Kenny said Phil Rowe, as the matchup for Randy Brown right now, I probably would have been more respectful than I'm about to be, right? But Phil Rowe's coming off a loss, Raymond, right?
Yeah.
Randy Brown's won 7 of 8, right? I mean, where is Phil Rowe in this division? They got like 30, 35 guys between. I love Phil Rowe's potential, and had he won this weekend, sure, but I just don't think you can do it now.
No, I get it. But I'm saying just as a range thing, it's always good.
Oh, matchup wise.
Yeah, that way. That was it. Nothing on the other end.
Right.
No, Randy definitely deserves to be moving up and given ranked guys at this point of 100%. Yeah. I just thought it was interesting because they're both so tall. Might make for a fun fight.
Yeah. All right. I guess I'll get you out of here on this. Unless, do you have anything locally you want to share? How was the weekend?
Weekend was good. We got Pumi Nakota fighting this weekend in Texas.
Wow.
Hopefully, he's going to be looking for a knockout. He wants to really get in the UFC, make everybody happy. So shout out to Pumi. He looks phenomenal, and I expect, as I always did, big things from him.
Again, it just comes back to the crazy, though, right? This sport, you got to go get a knockout. Right? Can't just get a win. Got to get a knockout if you're trying to get to the UFC. It's just crazy. I just have so much respect for these fighters.
And John, if you even look at the first fight with Raposo and the other guy, like what? I hear all this shit about, the flyweight division, this and that. And this is my baby. I don't know. What am I looking at? I mean,
right.
I don't know. Give the kid a shot. It's not. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. All right, last thing. So Nardu Debra, I know he goes way back with Matt Serra, but just a really good, humble coach that has taken Randy to places for him to get things in training that Nardu maybe can't provide. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt himself, but I just hope for these two that they can really make a concerted run here because they've done it the right way, and Nardu Debra has devoted so much of his professional life to this particular athlete, and they're doing something right.
No, they do. Listen, first of all, I go way back with Nardu also. Nardu was a really talented fighter, at the beginning of this thing. He's definitely a pioneer, at least on the regional scene for sure.
Yeah.
great kid. You know, looks like they got a great relationship. I know Randy was going to Matt's a lot, or not a lot, but at least once or twice a week, I think. I don't know if he still is. So, Matt goes way back with Nardu. I go way back with Nardu. And it kind of, he's in the whatever that jiu-jitsu branch or family is, he's in there with everybody. So I think he's doing the right thing. He's a great guy. He's a martial artist first and foremost, like real martial art. You ever seen him doing Tai Chi on the beach? You got to love him. He comes from really good stock. Ralph Mitchell, I think, was his first teacher, but Ralph was a super talented guy, probably a little older than me, but definitely was a legit martial artist, and kind of made the transition over to MMA. So I think Nardu's got all those good traditional, Kenny martial art qualities from way back when, and I think he's held to him probably more than anybody. So it's good to see. It is always good to see.
That's cool.
All right. Hey, thank you so much. I'm sorry for the switch up. No show is complete without you, buddy. So maybe we'll talk to you again on Wednesday when we go live once again. But thanks for the time.
Let's do it. Hey, what happened with the press conference? Do we know?
You're talking about oh, no, Connor and Chandler. No. We don't know.
Come on, give me something good. He was drunk in a bar. He hit somebody. Somebody came in. They were impregnated. Give me something. Come on.
You're talking about Chandler, obviously, right?
Yeah, that Chandler's what a deviant. Poor Chandler. He's a man of God. He's got to put up with this stuff.
Hey, we'll try to get you some news later today.
Awesome, guys. Hey, I love
Ray.
you guys. I'm glad
love you too, buddy. There he is, Ray Longo. Minute every week here on the Anik Florian podcast. Aljamain Sterling shaved his beard. That's a different looking Aljo.
Oh, wow.
Kenny, I wanted to quickly ask you about Grant Dawson over Joe Selecki. And these are two different ground specialists and ground fighters. Selecki's jiu-jitsu, it's fun for me to watch. That first round was really fun for me to watch, just given my relationship with you. I was with Renato Moicano last week, and I think the most animated he got was talking about Grant Dawson's control on the ground. He just said, you're not going to control this guy. And he trains with all of these monsters. And even though he lost to Bobby Green, this guy really wants to become a world champion. And at least in terms of the dominating nature of his wrestling, Kenny, I do think that Grant Dawson could be able to bank a lot of rounds. His style isn't one that gets expedited in terms of championships necessarily, but, dude, it makes for a suffocating night at the office, and I think he's going to beat a lot of guys in the top 15.
That was the difference when I was looking at this fight, to be honest. What was the wrestling game of Dawson? I think that's what kind of stood out. Now, Selecki, I thought, fought a really good fight, especially in round one. He was trying to get the butterfly guard going. He was looking for sweeps. He was looking for some nice attacks. But Dawson was just always in very good position, and that's because of that ground control from his wrestling background. Where he places his head, where he places his weight was critical to his success against Selecki, and Selecki just couldn't get him off of him. So, yeah, I thought it was a solid performance on the ground. I would have liked to seen more kind of dynamic positional changes, but more than anything else, I would say that he's got a long way to go, I think, with his striking, of just like being defensively sound and confident on the feet. I think that counter two was still there. Selecki wasn't able to find it like Bobby Green found it. So if he's able to shore up that, really kind of get more confident on the feet, I think he's well on his way and can be elite in that very tough division. But Selecki's not an easy out. The fact that he's able to get a win, I think, is always huge, right?
A lot of storylines coming out of UFC 302. We'll have more on Islam Makhachev's win coming up this Wednesday. We will also look ahead to UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Imavov. That is in Louisville, Kentucky, live on ESPN this Saturday night. It's a hugely busy month. Of course, we've got Saudi Arabia, Robert Whittaker, Khamzat Chimaev, June 22nd. And then eventually all roads lead us to International Fight Week. We got the Hall of Fame, June 27. June 29th, it'll be UFC 303, McGregor versus Chandler. And we'll see if that press conference can go ahead and get rescheduled. Thank you to our guest, Ray Longo, our executive producer, Code Blue, Cody Merrow. For Ken Flo, I'm John Anik. We will talk to you Wednesday. Until then, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Tell your mom you'll later.
from a man, not a big face.
Cornbread. He's cornbread. Like the mix in a bowl, like the yeast in a roll. He's alive, he ain't dead. He's a soul to the bread. He's cornbread. He's cornbread.